also co-sponsored legislation saying that reaffirming Israel's right to defend itself. I'm curious, what does the right to defend itself mean? And do you think that Israel's current actions in Gaza constitute that right?
Well, I've called for a permanent ceasefire. We need to end the violence. It's just been horrific to see and heart-wrenching. The Palestinian women and children who have been killed, nearly 15,000. I also thought it was horrific to see the initial attack on October 7th, and that Hamas was completely wrong, completely unjustified in that attack, where women were being raped, where hostages were taken, where 1,200 people were killed. And so what I said back then was Israel has the right to defend itself, to bring the Hamas perpetrators to justice for that barbaric act. But what they should not be doing is carpet bombing the entire population of Gaza, where you have thousands dying. And that's why I have called about a week ago for a ceasefire, release all the hostages, have a ceasefire, and then have negotiations to have an independent Palestinian state with equal rights.
We've seen that this is an issue that has been particularly important for people of color. Data for Progress just released new polling that shows that nearly 80% of Black Americans support a ceasefire. Why do you think this issue has touched people of color kind of across, different racial and ethnic backgrounds so deeply?
Well, because I think we see the humanity of Palestinian children and Palestinian women. And I think there are some people who say that our country has been too indifferent to that because they aren't valuing brown lives the same way we would value European lives or white lives, and that really has touched a chord among communities of color in America. You can't devalue a Palestinian life and then hold that all lives have equal dignity. And people feel if you're going to devalue Palestinian lives, are you going to devalue brown and Black lives in the United States? And that, to me, is the animating sentiment. I mean, look, there are only 43 people in Congress, including me, who have called for a permanent ceasefire. And I would say 90% of them are people of color, if you looked at that list.
Do you think there are, more white members of Congress who can be moved on this issue as well?
I do. I think it was a big deal when Jamie Raskin called for a permanent ceasefire. We need to look at the strategic reasons for a ceasefire. But the reality is that Israel can't eradicate Hamas completely. There are 45,000 fighters. They've killed 1,000 or 2,000. Macron said it would take 10 years. And the cost can't be hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilian casualties.
You recently spoke out about Mehdi Hasan being let go from MSNBC. What do you think we lose in the media when we lose these voices speaking out about racial justice issues?
Well, it's really unfortunate, and I believe that often the television networks don't reflect the changing demographics of young people in our party. I mean, this is a party that cares about racial justice. It's a party that cares about social justice. It's a party that cares about becoming a multiracial democracy. And it wants voices who are going to talk about human rights for Palestinians, who are going to talk about racial justice. I just think that we have this beautiful opportunity to build this multiracial coalition for justice in the 21st century. I'm inspired by my grandfather, Amarnath Vidyalankar. He spent 4 years in jail alongside Gandhi, fighting for India's independence movement. And that movement inspired Dr. King, who carried a Bible and Gandhi reader everywhere he went, inspired people like John Lewis.
All those people you've mentioned have expressed extreme political courage, extreme courage in the face of adversity in order to make those wins. Do you think that political courage still exists today in our society? Do we still have it in us to kind of make those big sacrifices?
It's a great question. I do think with these young folks, I mean, look at how they're risking arrest to try to get a ceasefire in Gaza. Look at Cori Bush when she demonstrated outside the Capitol steps to try to get the president not to have folks evicted from their homes. Some of these young folks are going to be running in primaries with millions of dollars against them because they're standing up for their conviction. So when I look at this next generation, when I look at the power of organizing, I do have a belief that we can get to a more multiracial democracy.